Hello and welcome to Sidequest. This is our weekly video game show here at Geek First. I'm your host, Dylan Musk, and I have with me the monolost, Travis Snell. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Pretty good for the most part. You know, it's Mondays that kick off. I think we were talking about this last week of a really great week here at Geek First. We got some good topics today and lots of fun casts. So it's a good time. You know, March is here. We're getting closer to officially. What's officially spring again? That's in April, right?
Oh man, it must be now.
You think so?
I think so.
When does spring start?
Because winter must be December, January, February, right?
It's March 20th. So we
Oh,
are in the
okay.
last few days here of winter.
Okay,
There you go.
coming to the close here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna be a spicy. We got Daredevil kicking off here in
Yeah.
just 1 day's time.
24 hours.
24 hours. Yeah, I guess it's 6
Yeah.
p.m. I saw, right?
Yeah,
Is it
6
when it
p.m.
drops?
tomorrow. Like by the time people are listening to this, it'll
exciting.
be hours away. So it's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so go check that out. And then in today's episode, we have a good mix of stuff here. We got some of the games we've been playing, maybe just a couple quick highlights there, and then a little bit of news, Fable, a little update there, and then the big one, of course, is WB Games closed 3 studios. So we're going to talk about all of the ramifications of what all that means. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. Oh, and then a quick draft check-in I want to do as well, because there's actually been a couple updates on that front already, even though we just did that like
Yeah.
3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, or something like that.
Yeah,
But of
it's getting
course, we've had
spicy.
some games releasing now. Other than that, hit up the Patreon. You get episodes early, you get them ad-free. It's the best way to listen. I recently learned about this, that apparently back in like November, December, if you subscribe to someone on Patreon through like the iPhone app, you get charged. You either get charged more or like the
Yes.
percentages off or something like that. So I don't know if we've ever talked about it on the cast, but
I think
you
we
know,
did once during a newscast. Yeah, we probably should be more specific, but I would always recommend just go to Patreon directly because that's
Yeah.
the prices through Apple. That is not our prices. We charge like there's a bunch of dollar tier, but I'd say the best tier most people use is the $5 Canadian, less than a cup of coffee. That gets you
Yeah.
hours of exclusive
whatever is
stuff.
sustainable for you.
Of course, yeah.
We just want to see you on there. We don't really care
Yeah.
what tier you're at.
Or
but-
just hit subscribe here or on video, like wherever. You know, there's
Yeah.
we appreciate if you're listening. You know, we've come a long way to have this amount of people still listening to us. Come 10 years, you know. So
Coming
it's
up on
nice.
10 years. Yeah, you can also leave a review. That helps, especially
Yes.
once again, Sidequest feed, because that's a separate thing from the Geek First feed at times.
Yeah, definitely give us a
yeah.
5-star review to bounce out. We got a 1-star review recently because Kirkland.
Who was it complaining about this time? Kirkland?
Kirkland, it was. I think this is the first time ever, and it was like, God, like why tell this whole story before a review? It was for his September 5 review when he told the whole rigmarole of why he was reviewing it. So I guess someone just really wanted a September 5 review.
For the
clicked on
one
it.
of the 12 people who wanted a September 5
Yes.
review. It's like,
This isn't good. So yeah, 1 star, which I think is history because I think we used to joke that Kirkland had never gotten any negative reviews. So I've not told him that yet, but I don't want to tell him really because he'll probably.
no,
hear
we
it
want him to
now,
do
but
more solo casts.
Yeah,
So we
and that
don't
was-
need to bring that up.
That was a great story too of how I was so confident with Sonic.
I love that
and
episode.
yeah,
I was
like,
thrilled from start to finish.
yeah, it's like and like. Just I don't know. Skip ahead a couple minutes. You'll get to the review. So yeah, balance that out. Someone someone give Kirkland a 5-star for September 5th review, or 5 for 5. You know.
5 for 5. That's the one.
Yeah.
Travis, let's start out by taking a quick look at our draft, because if we keep talking about other random
You were
stuff, we're
throwing
going to
to an
get...
ad break right there. It's like 3 minutes in. My God, what happened? We got to pay those
but if we
tax
keep
bills this
talking
month.
off topic, we might get another 1-star review. So we better get moving on
True.
with the show here. But yeah, for the draft chicken, so there are now 3 games that have released. So Kirkland still has nothing released, so he's still sitting there at 0 goose egg. But Taylor is jumped into 3rd place here with the release of Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii with a review of 79.
Ooh.
Review score of 79.
I think
Once
that
again,
you'd
these
be a
things
little-
can always change. They can always ebb a
Yes.
little bit, especially with
Yeah.
like newer things. But that one's probably pretty solid at this point. But 79, it's not an 80, but it's not a 60.
I feel like that's why I said ooh, because that's not bad. We've all had worse scores, but I feel like when he pitched, he's like, oh, all these games are usually in like the 80s, so I feel like pretty good. So like like you said, it could go up, but could also go down a couple notches. But still,
Yeah.
yeah, that's not bad. That's no South Park, you know.
It's no South Park, no. But that was his second pick, by the way. His second
Ooh,
round
okay.
pick. So pretty high up
Yeah.
there. Your second round pick also came out, and that is a little game by the name of Avowed, which is sitting at 80. So you got one
Yeah.
more point over Taylor there for second place.
I'm happy with that. 'Cause
Lower than I
did-
thought.
Lower than I thought too. I did pick that with the hope that it was going to be more of a breakout, but at the same time, when I did pick it, I did say there was that room for you never know new IP, and everyone's like, "Oh, big disappointment." So at the end of the day, to me, it was a more of a gamble pick for number two. But I'm happy with the 80. Wished for more, but could be worse. So thumbs up.
Yeah, and then my first round pick, my very first game that I pick on the draft is now out, which is Monster Hunter Wilds, sitting at a juicy 90.
Wow,
So
that's really
what
good.
can I say? I know
I've
how to
seen that.
pick them. I either pick them and they get delayed, or I pick a good one. That's my mo in this.
No,
And I
that's a
went.
really good one.
I thankfully went for a nice early game this year, so sitting
Yeah,
pretty in first place right now. We'll see how
nice.
long that lasts.
Yeah, that's good. Well, it's heating up. Luckily, no one had the game we're going to talk about later. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
I was kind of surprised to see that when I looked back at the list today, but
I
that's good
thought
for
for
us.
sure because we'll wait till we get there. But I right away went to my phone and was surprised. So
Yeah, definitely. But let's get into the games we've been playing. I'll start here, following off your pick that you got there for 80 points,
yeah,
Avowed. Did a long discussion on that last week with Taylor, but that's really the only thing I've been playing this week. It's the only thing I want to play. I did boot up like Sniper Elite
nice.
for like 5 minutes, the new one, and then I was like, you know what? I just want to play more Avowed. I just want more Avowed. I need things to talk about on the side quest, but I just want to play more Avowed. So it's really hooking me in here. I'm in the second area now, and the game just continues to be great. It's exactly what I want. It's so fun. The world building is fantastic. I'm just getting lost in the little details of just walking around these places, looking around the details, talking to all these random characters, reading notes, and just getting super invested in the world. And then it's just, once again, the highlight is the combat. I think the combat is super duper fun in this game. So I just wanted to share one anecdote, which is this is early on in the game. I have a bounty to go take out this like group of bandits, and they're kind of holed out, and not really a mountain, but it's like at the top of a hill, kind of. They built like a little spire around this little outcropping of rocks, sort of thing. So I circle around. One door is kind of locked. There's maybe a couple of sketchy parkour areas I could go, but I just find another way to kind of sneak through in the base. I go up top, kind of scout it there. There's a bunch of guys everywhere. There's even like a couple creatures and stuff. It's a little overwhelming. First, I sneak into a building, do a couple of nice stealth kills, take a couple guys out of the equation, right? And then I go back outside. I'm like, there's no way I can stealth through this. There's too many guys here. As soon as I attack one of them, they're all going to get alerted. So that's exactly what happens. Me and my companions, we just get into this huge fight with all these guys. There's like 4 or 5 guys. A couple of them are running at me with their sword and shield. A couple of them are in the back with just bow and arrow, just chip damage. And then they also have somehow recruited like multiple bears. So there's like 2 or 3 bears coming at me too.
Oh, nice. I like
The first
that.
time I did this
That's
fight,
cool.
died, had to reload my save and try again because I just got absolutely wrecked. But it was such a fun fight. Just like the way it was set up, there's kind of this one ramp down, a slight little cliff. And so I was kind of continually kiting up there. I'd run up to the top of the cliff. Then I would jump off because then it's like a little bit harder for them to get to me. I'd be trying to stun guys. I'm throwing grenades. I'm healing like crazy, but I'm running low on health potions. I try to dart to the back to get the archers out of there so that they can stop hitting me before these guys chase me again, trying to freeze people in their tracks. Super chaotic, super fun, and then eventually my companions, eventually they die. They tank a lot for me, but eventually they go down. It's just until the
R.I.P.
fight ends, and then they get back up. But it gets to this point where, okay, it's just me. There's like 3 or 4 enemies left. I'm getting charged by a bear and some other guy with a sword. I'm just backing up with my little wand, shooting little darts. I backed up enough that I accidentally fell off the cliff. Like the hill, the base they were on at the top of this little mountain, I just fell off this cliff, fell down like pretty far. I didn't die on fall damage, thankfully, but I was like, shit, I gotta get back in there. My companions are up there. I don't want this fight to get like reset. You know, sometimes in a game, if you leave the area and come back, the enemies like their health reset. So I'm like, I gotta get back in there. So I dart back around the same place. I come up, and you know what? That ended up being the perfect strategy because now they're way over here on the other side of the base, and now I have like a nice long range away from them, and I've kind of recouped my mana or my stamina and all this. And so then it was like easy pickings. So I got to do that more often. Just jump off of a cliff to get away from the enemies and reset the position because they kind of lose me. So it ended up working perfectly, and I finally beat that mission, got my bounty, collected all their fingers or whatever it was, and then went and got my bounty. So just the combat is so intense. There's so much to it. It's so great. I can't praise this game enough. I'm just in love with it.
I
Better
feel
than
like
80 for me if I was to review
I was
this.
gonna say, yeah, sounds like it. I was gonna say your tactic there of just falling off the, taking a little damage. And
My
resetting.
quote unquote tactic. Yeah, my accidental tactic.
I feel like that's a tactic like Wolverine should use in future fights or comics where he hasn't, right? Because you just fall off. That's what it sounds like you're doing, the Wolverine tactic, where you're sacrificing your body, but you're fine. You get back up. Your companions, aka the X-Men, are still fighting the good fight while you've diverted attention. So no, it's cool.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like the bears.
Really, Yes, really great time. Yeah, like I said, that is all I've been playing. So this will probably be like a weekly check-in game for me
Yeah,
until I beat it, and
nice.
I'm taking my time with it. I'm not exploring every last corner of the maps, but I'm taking my time with it, trying to see all that it has to offer. So that's what I've been up to.
Mhm.
Throwing over to you, what have you been playing recently?
Well, I got, I guess, three things. One,
Ooh,
just quickly, because football season ended, I was playing a lot of Madden. I played, I think, my last Madden game for maybe till the stream because GM mode is out on Friday. Dylan,
ooh.
I'm very annoyed because luckily the boys moved the Mickey 17 review to the Friday, but that means I got to see because I have my daughter's dance recital. It's pirate themed this year for Gwen and
Pirate
Logan.
Yakuza in
Yeah.
Hawaii, or just okay, just
It's all
pirate?
about the Japanese mob and
Yeah.
everything like that. But no, so I got to see Mickey 17 at 9:30, and the game comes out at 9. So I'm gonna enjoy Mickey 17, but the whole
Mm.
time I've been waiting, and I'm gonna wait for a future side quest when you ask me what I've been playing. But yesterday or last. I don't know how that works. At midnight yesterday, the embargo released for the GM mode stuff, and it was like
Mm.
features I've been wanting for a while happen. Because all I'll
So
say
the
is
reviews aren't out though, because I looked at that
no,
today.
that's I think the
Okay.
fourth. I think it's coming up,
Okay.
so it
Okay.
might be tomorrow at some point. But yeah, so that's coming out soon because they did like a creator day on the weekend where a bunch of YouTubers played and everything. But
Sure.
what happened was when they showed that trailer, they announced online mode, and I'm very excited because like I said, we're here cheap plug too. March 16th, me, David S. Bubs, we're doing a GM mode. We're probably gonna go for 5 or 6 hours. We're gonna try and finish a season.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're gonna try and finish a season until someone has a heart out. But yeah, it's us in a GM mode. We're playing a whole season. I'm so ready. I've created. I don't want to show the picture right now, but S-Bubs and David should be worried. I have a Bible right now. It's blanked out, so they can't see what's in there. But I have a Bible. You can see the words. There are words there.
I'm gonna be honest. I can't see anything, but
And
I
look, there's a
take your
letter. You
word
see
for it.
there? Because I show that to intimidate them. But I've
Oh,
been
I see.
working
Okay.
on a GMO Bible for me. So when I start up, I know like, hey, what I'm doing. Like, it's not like at home. We're gonna sit around and lounge around. It's like, no, I got two sharks
Do
after
you
me.
think there'll be any curveball new mechanics that throw you off? I guess if you've read the embargo, you kind of know what to expect a little bit, right?
Yeah, so there's multiples where like there's something coming up now where every 5 weeks there's an event where you pit. So let's say it's just I'll just make it easy. It's just me and S Bubs, let's say, and he's Raw and he's SmackDown. There's a show where there's gonna be two matches where I pick a superstar and he picks a superstar, and the winner gets 10,000 fans, and they also get like a special power card that you can only get at these events. So it's
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So one power card that you could win was like drain someone's superstar on the other roster to zero stamina, to zero, and that's like
That's
that's
pretty
like
good.
that's an injury right away for 5-7 weeks. So this is a big deal.
And you
And
could
there's
pop that on someone right as they come back from injury, I
yeah,
guess, right?
you could
Like
do
as soon
whatever.
as they're
You could do whatever you wanted. There's situations where you might, because me, David, S Bubs are going to be doing a threesome where we might have to team together. So there's all this stuff where it's more competitive. But the good thing is, or I guess what's fun is, you can't counter pick because you both pick a wrestler, but you don't get to know who you picked until the match happens. It's just a locked screen.
Oh, okay.
So like if he were to pick someone that's a bit more higher rated, let's say they got like a 96 rating, I'd be like, okay, I got to make sure someone of equivalent is going up there,
Yeah.
right? Because I have stamina people that maybe they're low and I don't want to play them. But if S Bubs is playing someone at 90% rating, like their stats, like how good they are, I gotta have someone equivalent. But I don't know that because it's
Hmm.
hidden. Because then I'm gonna feel bad if S Bubs like plays like a really shitty wrestler and I play a great wrestler, and sure I get the win, but the stamina. And they've said these versus matches they're gonna like drain your stamina, so your superstar is gonna get really
Okay.
hurt. But it's like money, fans, everything like that. So they've
Do you
created a
think
lot
that
more
will
versus.
like over incentivize like keeping your strongest guy only for that? Like, is that how big that benefit is that you would like not use them other than those fights every 5 weeks?
I have a strategy that I'm not willing to talk about until I
Okay.
play the
I
game.
don't want to
'Cause-
divulge your
no,
secrets.
No,
Yeah.
because I know S Bubs might listen, so I do, but I think I have a strategy that David and S Bubs would have never ever thought of. I got it written down. I'm very
Ooh, okay.
excited, but yeah, so there's tons of like planning out now. And what my point was that early when the first game trailer came out, they just announced online, and that was really it. So I kind of thought, okay, first time ever, they're doing online. That's only the feature we're probably gonna get. There's not gonna be much fine tuning, but the thing that they added was, you've seen the game. There's so many wrestlers. The problem that I always had was the match card was limited to 4 matches, and it kept your roster really small. But they've changed it to 5 matches, and it doesn't sound that big. But like before, I'd say like you could probably play with a limit limit of like 16 wrestlers. Now you could play with like 24 to 28, and for me that's huge because like there's so many people in there. It's like I don't want to just be limited to my 12, 16 guys. So a feature that I've been asking for since they brought it back like 4 years ago is finally added because the old games had that in the 2000s. So that's why I was always like, the games from 2007 could do 5 matches. Why can't we? And now they can. So that's why I played. I finished my man run. I lost in the playoffs. I was really disappointed there on my franchise mode. I won the Super Bowl, lost in the playoffs, won the Super Bowl, lost in the playoffs. So I got a very mixed record right now. And it was like it was my bad. I like screwed up. I had some really bad plays, and I just I think I underestimated the CPU, and I made a lot of mistakes, and I was pretty salty. But so I finished that, and then in the future, we'll talk about Indiana Jones because I played a little bit, but just a couple hours. I wanted to play more, but I just didn't have time. But
let's wait till you're done the game, and then we can dive into.
Oh, I am done it.
Just going back for the bonus stuff.
Yeah, I'm going back to the bonus stuff because I told you there's that I'll say there's that wall with the. There's a certain thing you collect and then you put it in the wall.
Right.
Yeah, I want to complete that wall. But I beat the game. Mini preview. I loved it. Probably
you're no Taylor Field. You beat the game.
Probably would have been my game of the year last year, to be honest. So we'll save that for another time because I had tons of fun with that. But
nice.
So it'll just be GM. My layout right now is GM mode, Alan Wake, and then is what is it? Probably Lord of the Rings. What is it? Shadow of War, because all the Monolith and Nemesis talk, and now that I know Wonder Woman's not happening, it's like I'm gonna play this. It's kind of like I'm waiting for KOTOR remake to be canceled so I can go back and play KOTOR because I don't want to play it over and then the remake happen. So the only thing I've been doing as of new, and this started while I was off, I would tease it last time, but I've like semi been playing Minecraft, but more with Gwen. This is like a huge blind spot where I feel like two of the biggest games of I'd say the past, I don't know when they started. Minecraft's 20 years old now, right?
No, like 2011.
Okay, so I'll play it safe. Of the last 10 years,
maybe
somewhere
2009.
in there,
I don't know, somewhere around.
Of the last 10 years, like two of the biggest games ever, Fortnite, never touched, never downloaded, never played at all. So I still, I have no idea.
I'm a bad video game show host. I've never played Fortnite.
And Minecraft's another one that I never, and it was never like, that doesn't interest me because I like builders, but I guess it probably came out at a time where I was playing just more specific games and maybe I didn't have the time to do like, I could get lost. Like I could see why elementary school or middle school kids, like I could imagine having that game for spring break or summer break of like, I just spend days building my utopia out and everything. Yeah, there you go, right? And that's where I think it came out more when I was like in high school. So this was a game that Gwen wanted to play because like a bunch of kids her age talk about, her cousins talk about. So I'm like, okay, yeah, this seems like a good one. But it was like the blind leading the blind because like I know you build, but like I don't know how any of this works. Like, and we're not doing there's like the survival mode and then just the build mode. We're just doing the build mode right now.
Oh, okay.
Even her, she was like, I just want to build stuff, and I think that's probably a good way like to start off. And
you can at least you can play survival and like turn off the monsters if you want. Okay. So it's like you at least get a little bit more of the actual gameplay, but without the threats. Okay. Other than like falling in lava or something, I guess.
Okay, so that's good to know. So maybe we'll transition there because she's played a little bit. So maybe I'll ask her and say if she wants to turn the monster off. But I think so far she's having a good time, and it's been fun. It sucks the first week, or first 2 weeks she worked hard on a place, and it's in like the whole world map, and we still haven't found it again. I don't know where she went. I left her for a little bit, made dinner, and it's just off in the ether. So I'm hoping one time. But now we specifically picked a spot. I'm like, okay, pick a spot with a big landmark, and it's like this pirate boat or something that has like treasure, and then like off to the side it's like, okay, just don't go too far from this boat, we know where your stuff is. And it's lots of fun. The music's great, and the score, a couple times I've let the girls listen to it, is like there's the ambience they got on YouTube, so it's like Minecraft music with rain, so it's like that's like a nice calming game. That's much better than some like the Paw Patrols or like some of the iPad games. It's like, this is very nice, and it's been cool to see the things she creates and what she's doing and stuff. So like I've been playing like tangentially, and she wants me like to build my own place. I haven't yet because I just feel like I lost this skill a long time ago, like the builder. It's like I feel like at one point in my life I used to be able to draw, and I can't draw to save my life anymore. That's why I hate whenever we do one of those games on Jackbox and it forces you to draw. That's always like, I don't want to play because everyone just knows what my drawing is. They just know because I have shitty writing and my drawings. So like, and at one point I have drawings when I was a kid. I was like, who is this kid? Like I must have took a soccer ball to the head or something. Probably. But Yeah, no, it's been fun just watching her build everything out. It's been fun exploring that, and I don't think it's made it to the point where it's like, oh, I want to play on my own. But I think I'm soon enough going to build my own property once she's kind of done her stuff there. But yeah, she's having a good time, and it's been fun to. There's certain things like just learning where I couldn't remember. We accidentally put some water in our house, and we took out the water, but it wouldn't get rid of the fish, so we are just stuck with this fish. So we had to like
Oh, okay.
tear down the whole house and start over and everything like that. So I think this is like another good. It's like it's funny to compare this and Smash Bros, but in different routes. They're like good things to kind of learn on. Like they're not like obviously tons of kids play it, but I feel like it is a good like things of moving the camera around. That's still things that they haven't played in many games. This is like a
Mm-hmm.
mini version of like you're kind of getting that idea of hey, your eyes are connected to your thumb and this stick right here. You know where
Yeah.
like I said before, I'm excited to get to it. But when we played, I think it was about a year and a half ago, tried Star Wars Lego. It was just that part was just too advanced for them. So this is like a good like mini step. And no, it's been fun. It's a great game. I'm like I guess I'm not surprised. I guess I'm just surprised like how big it's gotten because I do really enjoy it. But I also haven't played the survival thing stuff. And like I said, I do see why kids like during a spring break or summer would just because every week she asks like, "Can I play?" We kind of have a rule. We kind of let them do it like once in a long stint, eventually two. But we also just don't want them to like just completely do that right
Mm-hmm.
now. So, but no, it's been a fun time so far and been enjoying. It's just like nice to kind of scratch off the list because I said just stuff like music. Didn't even know what that sound like I couldn't say like couldn't don't know what the menu like I'm just learning what the creeper is and everything like that.
Yeah.
She hasn't asked about the movie yet, so my fingers crossed or she does and we just see it at home. If she wants to see it in theaters, I'll take her, but I'm sure she might friends might talk about it and we'll see. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's been my little venture. It's been a great set of menus. I love that it's like the art style is you could I'm sure you could update and make it look all fancy, but I love the retro feel of
Yeah,
it. Like
there's a million art packs and things like that. Yeah.
yeah, like obviously I know it came out in '09, but even in '09, like things didn't look like that, right? Like we were far more advanced than that.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the aesthetic they picked and no, I kind of get it. Not that I'm surprised, but like I do get it and yeah, but that's been about it. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that to speak on like how it got as big as it did, I mean, it was big early on, like even before it was officially released, right? Like, because it was like an alpha. That's when I first started playing it. Just because I saw a
oh
couple
yeah.
YouTubers talking about it, and then following it through beta, and then eventually like its full release. And I think it's really when it got to the more multiplayer online server element of it. I think that's when it kind of elevated it to a next level. All that stuff was not even like natively in the game at first. It was like you had to download all these weird apps and things like that to play online. But now it's like super easy to get in there. And I don't know if I forget if that needs a subscription or something to do the realms and whatnot. But I think that's kind of where things explode, where there's huge servers and people
Mm-hmm.
do mini games and things like that. And that's where kind of it has like that Fortnite element to it. It's like Roblox or Fortnite in that exact same way. But
Okay.
then, yeah, for someone like me, if I ever go back to it, I'm not going to do that stuff. I just go back and boot up a new world and like, play for a couple weeks kind of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad that you've played it because it's one of those games that like I haven't really talked about on in the Sidequest era because I just haven't really
Yeah.
played it recently. But like it'll forever be, I think, in my top 10 all time favorite
Oh
games.
nice.
It
Yeah.
is just one of the best, and I can still like vividly remember my first base that I built back
Mm-hmm.
in whatever it was 2010 or something like that, in like early high school for me, and I can still vividly picture so many different houses or servers or things like that that I went on, and then I remember at one point me and my friend we would just download like mystery and like puzzle maps and things like that so people like create like pre-made like little video games essentially within the world of Minecraft using like signs and redstone technology and all this crazy stuff, and then we just drop in here and like play these like mini games that people had created in there. So like that's where it really is just like infinite, and you can find
Yeah.
your fun in it in whatever way you want.
Well, and that's the cool thing from the outside is to when I'm watching Gwen build to see like what she wants to build and just whether it's color set like it's like a little like window into her mind of like okay what is she
Mm-hmm.
what does she want why is it this house here why does it look like that why so that's been a fun thing from the outside because it's been more so me helping her. At least I haven't built the thing yet. I've told her soon I have to build like some piece of
Yeah,
property
I mean,
there but
let's talk that through. Like, what could you could do like a classic brick house. You could do like in the side of a cave. You could do like a hobbit hole. You could do a cave in the ground. You could do like a floating glass base. You could do a castle with a moat. Like,
I want
what would
something
what would you do?
castle esque. I
Classic
think.
castle wall
Yeah,
kind of
something
thing.
like that. I think that's like obviously I'm not going to get to have seen. It's wild. Those things people do with like Hogwarts or Middle Earth. Like when I showed Gwen a couple things on YouTube, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we'll have to do." I'm like, "Well, no, that's like a You gotta have many years left before you get there. But yeah, I think a castle. It's not gonna really fit with Gwen's aesthetic. I feel like she has like a future suburban thing going on right now.
Wait. Keep going. How, future
Because
suburban.
because
What's
I
going
feel
on?
like it's kind of like if you think about suburbans, right, where it's all like the houses and they're all together.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like all the bottoms, the doors, the inside, it's all like regular housing, but the roofs are always funky. They're always bright blue, they're bright pinks. They're like
Okay.
so
Okay.
it looks
Okay.
like it's like we're on the way to Blade Runner, where it's like slowly, it's like the bottom, like the roof is the Blade Runner science place.
Mm.
Inside, everything else is fine. It looks like it's a regular bed, but the top of all her buildings have like she, I guess, just views that a roof has to be like a very bright color and a very, like, it's not just a regular, like, oh, it's a block. It's like sometimes like it's those translucent ones, or it's like there's like a pink one where it's like, I don't know, kind of looks glassy. Like, and I'm not sure if they're all the same color or whatnot, but that's the biggest thing, that there's kind of like a mix of all the houses look generally normal except for the top halves, and those look like something you wouldn't see. So
See,
that's
I
what
feel like a castle would fit in perfectly there. Maybe you
it
just
might,
touch it up
yeah.
with a little bit of bonus color on top.
Yeah, I might need to. I like that idea too. Of like that's some, I imagine, in video games, stories. Well, that's never been done, like a sci-fi medieval. Maybe there's a reason, but could you imagine that, where you think about medieval times?
Hmm.
Think about it like it's a reverse, where like where we are now, and then like the apocalypse happens, but we still have some tech. Because like people do like think about that. Oh God, what's that new Naughty Dog game called? Intergalactic, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
it's like old stuff, but it's in the future. But it's like old, like, oh, it's an old stereo, it's MP3 player. I don't think anyone's ever done anything like that, where it's like medieval stuff, but there's like a sci-fi like tinge to it. I know it sounds like an anti, like a double negative thing, but maybe there's something there. So
Yeah,
that's what
I
I'll
just
do.
think of fantasy games that have like machinery, but that would be just like
Yeah,
kind of basic Steam-based
steampunk.
things.
Yeah,
Like Morrowind's got a bit of that. Avowed kind of has a little bit of that. So
yeah.
I think that
Cloud
sort of thing's
Atlas,
been done. But
Cloud Atlas. I mean, I
there's
was thinking
not enough
Cloud.
Cloud Atlas.
No, no,
This
no.
was not a good excuse to bring up
No,
Cloud Atlas.
I meant like more almost a Final Fantasy a little bit, right? Where there's like a mix of like
Yeah,
old and
definitely.
new. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's fair.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I think it's been done, but you guys you could create your own new art style within
that's
the
what I'll
world of
do.
Minecraft.
Yeah,
So that's very cool. Yeah, I'm glad
yeah.
that you're finally not. That's a good one to knock off the backlog a little bit.
Yes,
I mean, and it's one
absolutely.
that you can never. I mean, technically there is a way to roll credits now, but like it's a game you can never
No.
complete or be done with. So like even
Yeah.
if you just jumped in for a few hours, you have now kind of experienced a little bit of what makes that game so special.
Yeah. No, it's been a good time.
What are you gonna hit off net? Is it Fortnite, Roblox? What's the next like big, obvious game that you've never played? How do you feel like you're
See,
gonna
oh,
do?
so you put you Roblox you put there as well?
But I feel like because you have kids, like maybe that would make it a bit more
Well, that's what I was gonna say, because yeah,
digestible.
I didn't know about it really until I think I probably heard the name, but I didn't really know about it
It's
until
like
last year.
it's like Minecraft 2, pretty
Okay,
much from what
yeah.
I understand.
Because her cousins play it, and I think we like bought them a couple gift cards and stuff. So I feel like that would be the next one. I don't foresee Fortnite. Like, I think Gwen's far off from that. I just really, I never have interest, other than like I appreciate and I respect the hustle that they do, and I
Yeah,
respect when you see like the loading screens and all the skins and characters they've
yeah.
acquired. It's like, okay, that's very cool, but it's nothing that I want to get into right now. So that'd probably be the one. If Fortnite, maybe down the road, but I don't even think Gwen's like had a interest, like, oh, I know kids her age play them, but she's never brought that up once as like something she's wanted to play. If she does,
Hmm.
then sure, but if it doesn't come up, then probably not for a while. So
Yeah, no, keep her on Smash Bros. You know, we don't need more
yes.
Fortnite players in the world. We need more Smash players.
Yeah,
in the
we got to
world.
go back and unlock that. We did a couple more. We haven't bought the new Mario Party, but we did some Mario Party Superstars as well. So there's
Cool,
been kind of
nice.
a different rotation going on. So
Right on.
yeah,
That was great. That was all the games, right, that you had on
yeah,
your
that's
list
all the games
today?
for now.
Cool.
Yeah, no, like I said, just been checking some things off, but I'm saving up. I've not been this anticipated for a game in quite a while. Maybe since Death Stranding, to be honest. I really have to think about it, but like
Whoa,
it's just
that's awesome.
it's specifically just Travis stuff, because it's the features I wanted and they put back in.
Well, that's the
There's-
best kind when it's so specific to
Yeah.
exactly you, right?
Like the YouTube comments for the embargo are brutal, because they did this thing for GM mode where, because I've said this before, for the next GM, I told these guys, and I think I told on the newscast, what I want to do for Extra Life, at least for a 1 hour block, is have Dylan, Kirkland, and Taylor play around the GM mode, but I'm going to make it all like created people. So like Master Chief, Mario. I got to see if I can find Spelunky. I just want to be like random people. Like I just saw today someone on 2K25 is playing with Daredevil and Wilson Fisk, and they recreated the ending of Daredevil season 3 when he beats him up. So I want to download like, because you can download 100 characters. I'm gonna download like 100 just like random characters. I want to see you guys play.
Put the pool from Night Swim in there.
I'll get Espos to make that one. But the thing is, what happened is, and I get it probably for legal stuff, but for the online mode, they said that you can't use custom rosters. For me, I'm completely fine. There's like, I think it's like close to 300 wrestlers in the main game, but that's been the biggest thing all day. Is everyone's like, oh, this is so lame. No custom rosters. What are they doing? We finally get online and it's shit. It's like, we just like last year was all. They didn't announce online and everyone was pissed. And then this year, like, hey, you can play online. You just can't use like wrestlers from other companies or like Black Panther. And I was like, oh, this is dumb. It's like just beggars can't be choosers. So I'm just happy. Like he's like same thing as supposed to do. It's like, yeah, like we just got online. Like and that kind of, for me, I said to Emily, that's a fun thing because online with the boys, I can play it gives me a reason to still be excited to play by myself, because now when I'm not playing online with the boys, that's when I can do my custom rosters and wrestlers from other companies or weird things. So like it kind of gives me a reason. I get why people might be upset, but I'm, the stuff that I wanted. So I feel like there's more people negative on it, but I'm happy. So maybe I'm screwed for those reviews. I don't know, but I think the critics will be fine. So let's see next week.
Sounds good. I'm excited to hear. Yeah. I'm excited to watch that stream and excited to, just hear about the game in general once you've played some more of it. So that'll be at some point on a future side quest. But for now, let's take a quick ad break. We'll be right back. We are back, and Xbox made an announcement this week, along with a short little video that Fable has been officially kicked, just like a chicken, out to the year 2026. No month or date or anything like that, but I think, it's funny. Like, none of us put this game on our draft, and I think partially that was probably because, like, who knows? This game's made by Playground. They make a bunch of Forza games. What are they doing making Fable? Question marks there. But I think for me, I just was kind of unsure if it was going to release this year, and I just had what felt like more solid picks. But anyway, it has been officially kicked, and we got like a new trailer. It's like a little gameplay demo trailer. I don't really know what you want to call it. It's pretty small. It's less than a minute long. Mostly shows some combat and then like a little bit of walking around with the character. I don't know. What did you think of this bout of footage that we got here?
I'm bringing it up again to see, because I watched it. I watched it the day of the actual delay, so I was bad podcaster. Didn't watch it again right now, but I'm I don't know. I'm very pessimistic with this game. It's not just because it got delayed again, but this has been in the cooker for quite a while. Like, when did we get this announced?
It might have been announced quite a while ago, but I think for me, the timelines felt pretty reasonable because last game they did was Forza Horizon, right, which was like 2021 or something like that. So it's like not that old. Like the development time kind of makes sense even with the 2026 date.
I guess because I think the problem was, though, when they did the first official announcement, they didn't tell us who was working on it, right? It was just like...
They did, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, did they? In like the trailer and everything like that? Like,
I think so.
Let me go back to that. I'm going to go back a couple
times.
Like
the one with the frog, that first initial thing?
Yeah.
So yeah, Forza Horizon came out in November 2021. So to me, like, this timeline seems to make a lot of sense. Even with like that 6 year, or I guess 5 years.
Okay, so
if it does come out next year.
Trailer. So I imagine they'd have a logo at the end of it with the team, right? Let's see. So it just said...
I think Fable came up it was the last drop, like that it was actually Fable, and probably Playground games came up earlier.
You're right. Be a Xbox. Let's see, and then we have. Yeah, no, you're right. Playground games, I guess. And this was back 4 years ago, which does. I guess it just feels longer, but even then, I guess it's just because it was.
I mean, for games, that is a pretty long amount of time from announcement to release date. Obviously, this thing's way longer. Like Elder Scrolls 6 now is like 3,000 years, I think. But this is longer than a lot of games get. And
hey, we just had a game that was also announced 4 years ago, completely gone to smithereens, right? So I think with this game, as I'm rewatching the footage now, I don't think it looks anything too special. So that's why I pull it, because I feel like I've forgotten about it. It feels like at times it's like it's a light like I don't want to say it's like Witcher light, but there's times where it feels like that, and that to me is not a good thing. I'm not a person that's a big fan of the Fable franchise, so I don't have much to go off on if this looks just like an update version of that or what it is. It didn't do anything for me where I was looking more forward to it. It felt like they just want to put something out there that was okay. We're doing this delay, but show us. But I just feel like this. I don't know. I don't have. I will never draft this game, is what I'm saying, and I think that's why when you're talking about, because I thought the same thing when it got delayed. I pulled up right away. I'm like, oh, somebody must have had it. I feel like I thought Taylor, but I feel like I recall that when we were talking about it, we all just still had that like trepidation about it. And for me, it's not even the date; it's just how the game's actually gonna go. And yeah, the alpha was fine, but like I said, I just think it was like something to satiate people that were it was delayed another whole year. So I'm not surprised because we've still heard very little of this, but I feel like this is gonna be like fall next year if it does come out, and I don't have high hopes. Like I'm in the I don't know why. Maybe I'm being cynical, but I'm thinking 70 is like the cap here, like in the 70s. Like I don't think there's no way it's an 80. I don't know. And then because you know better than me with Playground, do they have any experience making this type of game, or is this like a because it happens like Killzone, right? Gorilla did that, and they did Horizon, so it can happen. But that also is like another situation where I go, it's not a proven route that we've been down before, right? So
Yeah, I mean, they've been the studio's ever done is Forza Horizon. Now you could really
yeah,
go deep and look at like the creative leaders and the games they worked on before Playground was a thing, because Playground's only been around since I guess 2012 is what I'm seeing here. So
hmm
not that super old, but obviously those people were working on other games before, so that would require a deeper dive. But it is definitely uncharted territory for them, and like it seems like a much bigger jump than we saw. Like that Horizon example always comes up, but even that is like, okay, first to third person, but still like an action game, different setting, but like there's a lot of
hmm
similarities. But going from racing open world game to like fantasy RPG, very writing focused, like it feels like
yes,
quite a major leap. Yeah, I mean, I've since the beginning of this, like I like the trailers they've done where they really set the tone. I think they seem like they're getting the humor right and the characterization and that sort of stuff, which is a very important part of what Fable is for me. But yeah, my question has always been more with the gameplay side of things. Are they going to be able to pull it off? We'll see. And yeah, this was not a very reassuring trailer for me. Like a lot of the clips they showed were very basic, just like slowly walking through a admittedly very very beautiful place.
hmm
And then like the little bit of combat we got just looked really really stiff. And you
yes,
know it says there at the bottom of the screen the whole way through in big bold letters like pre-alpha footage or something like that, right? So it's early. Like usually these things, it's like that footage is probably months old now anyway. But and that maybe the game's not even in alpha, and maybe it's in like beta, or I don't know what the heck it works at a big studio like that. But the game could be a lot further along. This is just footage that they were able to show, I guess. And so yeah, we'll have to remains to be seen. And obviously, I'm not going to judge it based off this. This just kind of seems like okay, they wanted to sweeten the bad news with a little bit of
yes.
honey on top, and so they're like, here, give the fans something here. And like the two things that I glommed onto, or I guess three things, is like they showed a Balverine, which is like an iconic Fable enemy, like the big Wolverine thing. It's much bigger and looks pretty scary. The ones from Fable 1 are like very lanky kind of things, and so these has a different new tone to them. Kicking the chickens, that's a classic Fable thing as well. You can always just vault these chickens across like a
Hmm.
field goal. And then like the little knoll enemies, like the little mini guys with that are kind of going crazy. So showing some classic Fable stuff in there, just to reassure you. But yeah, remains to be seen what's going on with the gameplay because it does look a little stiff. And then I think the other thing for me is even more so important than that is like when we were walking through the world, like that city that they showed, that shot, like cool, beautiful looking city, but it's like a little muted. It's not as like colorful and zany
No.
as I want from Fable. And Fable's always had this art style that's like kind of very exaggerated. Things are like
hmm
bulky and silly and cartoony, or at least it started that way. And then I think as the series has gone on, it's actually veered a little bit away from that. But that's kind of my heart and soul. Like I've mentioned this many times before, but like diehard super fan of Fable 1, one of my favorite games of all time. Barely played Fable 2, never played Fable 3. Like it's just one of those series that it's like, yeah, I'm excited for this, but I haven't even played the whole series. I can go back and play new Fable experiences right now. So
hmm
I'm kind of a fake fan, I'm just a diehard for the original, and so of course those are the things I'm nostalgic for and I want. And like I said, they are nailing it with certain parts, but then other parts kind of missing the mark. But I'm kind of okay with this too. Like I'm kind of okay to see a new iteration of Fable. Of course, it's going to be different. And, like Lionhead is such a iconic studio in terms of the kind of games they made, and they're not around anymore. And I'm kind of down to give a shot to Playground here to make something different and new. And the pressure on their shoulders is freaking huge. But I think if it doesn't pay off, then go make a Forza game. It'll be very successful.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm like a little bit more okay with it. Where like it feels like any time a studio is taking a risk right now, feels like okay, is the studio just gonna get a game canceled and then closed, and then all these people lose their jobs? I don't feel like that's gonna be the case here, even though Xbox and Microsoft have done a shit ton of layoffs already. But I'm okay for them to take a little bit of risk here, and I think it'll be okay, even if it's not like a perfect game. So. Yeah, I don't think this really worried me necessarily, but it unfortunately didn't get me a whole lot more hyped either, which I don't really think, once again, was the purpose. I think they just wanted a little bit of a gift on the doorstep on the way out, right?
Yeah, and like you were talking about the buildings, that's where I kind of had those Witcher vibes, because Witcher's not, they have outlandish stuff, but then the cities, the landscapes, they look very much, this is realistic medieval fantasy, right? Where, like you said with Fable, all I've heard is it's more like fantasy book sort of way, not that type of fantasy where it's supposed to be a bit more outlandish. So it just felt more. I think my thing was, like I said, it just didn't stand out. It not didn't look bad per se. It just didn't look like, oh man, this is something very new happening. To me, it's, I've always made the comparison of both times where when God of War came back, it stood out, looked something different, and I always thought whatever that last Halo was, I thought they were going to do the same thing, and it was just, I felt like for everyone was, oh, it's just kind of more Halo, right? And this kind of, I can't compare because I'm not more, I haven't played Fable, but this just looks more like other action RPGs of the last 5 years, and like that are fantasy, right? It didn't look like anything where it's like, oh, it came back and I get why people really like this because it has this. Like, to me, it's something like in 10 years from now, let's say they do Death Stranding 2, they don't do anything more, and they do Death Stranding 3, you would feel that world and the imagery and like the visuals. You go, okay, this is very specific, but it's almost like if they just kind of like, okay, well, we got to make it more like this, unless Kojima yet. So, yeah, no, it's, and again, we'll see. It's probably far way off, and maybe the actual full, all it takes is one more good trailer and like a full look, and then people are really excited and good to go. So,
Yeah. Yeah, my guess at this point would be then, because they've been on 3 years in a row now of doing the Xbox Developer Direct in late January, which is like, here's a super duper deep dive on like 4 or 5 of our games that are coming out this year. And so my guess now would be that next January we'll definitely get a Fable one there. Even if the game doesn't come out till fall, like still like do that big deep dive, give us like 15, 20 minutes of going in depth on everything. We'll see a lot more, but I don't think we will see any more Fable this year. So I guess that's why I wanted to bring it up today, because I don't think we're going to be talking about it for like probably another 12 months pretty much.
do you still count, because it's at the very end, anything at Game Awards?
I guess maybe if the game actually is coming out like early, like if it's coming out in like April or May of next year, maybe that's where they would do that. But I just feel like Xbox has so many games in the oven right now that there's a lot of other things that could easily go in that Game Awards spot if they want it. But I kind of am inclined to agree with you, just like fall of the year. I don't know when they games traditionally release, and I don't think Xbox really cares when the legacy games released at this point, like, you know, in terms of trying to like, oh, every November kind of thing like Bethesda usually does. But I don't know. I think that would also just be a good hype cycle build up. Do the developer direct in the summer thing, have another big showcase, really promote the hell out of Fable, because that one could be a huge seller for them.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe part of the delay is to get it on the PlayStation day one. Who knows? We don't know what's going on with the world of Xbox, so that could be part of it too. And once again, get that marketing cycle built up. Bam, that game could be a really big deal. So, I mean, hopefully it's good too.
Yes,
I mean,
that has to be another
important
part.
thing.
Yeah, that has to be the second part of that thing. Yeah, no, I was just wondering with Game Awards, just because if they were confident it was coming out next year, then obviously you would miss that, right? There's always Summer Games Fest, but I definitely feel like Summer Games or Game Awards is the A show. That to me does better, just has more of the hype. I feel like people Summer Games Fest like, oh, okay, like we've had many years where that's kind of fine. Even Game Awards, I feel like the years that you may thought it was lesser than, it still feels like the big one. So that's why I feel like it's kind of like, well, if you don't do it now, you could maybe never do it, right? So I could see maybe a teaser of some sort, even if they do one of those classic, like a teaser, and they kind of allude to see more at a direct in the future or whatnot. Like they've done that too. So I think it'll be there if they're confident it's out next year, just because it's a big platform. So
yeah. Okay, there you go. There's Fable for the day. And moving on to our final topic of the day, but it is a big whopper of one. Last week, WB Games announced the closure of three studios: WB Games San Diego, which was founded in 2019 and I don't think has released a game. I don't know if they were a support studio. I could not find any information on what the heck the studio was. But anyway, it got closed down. Player First Games, who are the developer of Multiverses, and then Monolith, who have made, I mean, games since the 90s, but most
Yeah.
notably kind of became most popular in the last 10 years with the, remind me the name of these two freaking Lord of the Rings games. I always forget what they're called.
Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War.
Okay, it's not that
Yeah.
hard. I don't know why I can't
No.
remember it, but I can.
They're generic. Shadow of War is a generic title, and they might actually be Middle Earth Shadow of like they might be the longer.
Yeah, I think that is
so.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, of course, with Monolith, like the big thing is, as you alluded to earlier, they announced they were working on a Wonder Woman game several years ago now at this point, and so that game is of course canceled. The studio is closed down, and see you later, I guess. So I guess just quick, because the Monolith, that's the big thing, but let's quickly talk about the other two. I mean, San Diego, I don't think either of us really have anything to say about that. It's hard to feel too emotionally charged about that one. We don't even really know what's going on with it.
Yeah.
And then Player First Games. Unfortunately, this is like not surprising at all. That game just had, well, Multiverses, that is, had like just one of the dumbest launches ever, right? It like kind of sort of launched, and then it launched again a few months later, and then they took it offline, and then they launched it again. Every time had some issues involved with it, microtransactions up the ass, weird, annoying structure. It's annoying because I really like what the core of this game is. I think taking platform fighter, making it like multiplayer focused, teams focused, cool movesets, great character roster, but just the release schedule of it was absolutely abysmal. And how much of that is the executives, the suits, the people up top versus like the studio. We'll never really know the full details on that. I'm sure it's a mixture of both, but probably more of like the people up top wanting to make as much money as they can off this game. When this game got announced that it was getting its final season, I think that was like last month or 2 months ago or something. Like, this is not really a surprising end, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I was even looking, like, I guess technically when this studio first started working on Multiverses, they weren't owned by WB, and then WB acquired them and then shut them
Yes.
down. So it's a weird order of events, and I wonder why it happened to be that way. But you have to wonder what that studio would have been able to accomplish if they would have been able to stay open, even if they were independent, without the acquisition. So who knows what would have happened there? But yeah, what are your thoughts? And I don't think you've talked about Multiverses kind of getting its final update and kind of being not canceled. Like, you can still play it, I guess, but you just not like online's going to be disabled at some point. What were your thoughts on the kind of funeral for that game?
Yeah, it's because I can't remember if we talked about the last time I was on before I left or after we talked about Multiverses, because also we talked about it on the stream and how you couldn't even just local play. It was you could, but it's a big pain and stuff. So yeah, that's one of the more mishandled ones, and I think it's just like something we've seen the past few years where unfortunately, unless you are a top 5 studio or you're backed by a Sony and Microsoft in a big, like, I mean, backed, like literally it just says Sony, right? Like, it's a Sony first party Xbox. If your game doesn't perform to whatever levels they have it at, or whatever on the chart they say you got to get to X, Y, and Z, it just, your studio's gone and people are out of
Well,
work.
even if you do have Sony or Microsoft backing you, that doesn't even seem to matter these days either. And they're closing studios left, right, and center, and they're firing people from Naughty Dog and all these big studios, right?
Well, that's, I mean, like big ones where it's like so it's a Sony partner with a Kojima, like they don't own the studio, but they're putting it out. Like, that's at least, even if Death Stranding 2 bombs, it's like, well, Kojima Studios is safe, right? Or Productions, whatever, is safe. And it's just, yeah, it's a crappy situation. And yeah, I think it's one of those things where it was kind of writing on the wall once it just fumbled that hype. I think it had hype for a while. It wasn't like an all-star world's greatest game of all time or anything, but I think it was fun. I think it had some buzz, like we've talked about before. I think there is room for a Smash competitor somewhere. I think PlayStation just has to just dust off their knees from All-Stars and just say, we're going to do it. We're going to commit to it. And I don't think they will, though. I think there's just too much fear there, right? And I think
I would be scared for whatever studio had to make that in terms of if they would stay open after they release it. That's just the sad state of things right now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So yeah, no, it's a shame that's the way it went, but it wasn't that's the unfortunate thing. It wasn't a surprise. I think the Monolith one is obviously more surprising, but this was, I feel like the writing was on the wall for kind of, if not the year, the past 6 months. So, and we talk about many times in the Discord, which, you can join. We have many channels there, but bummer that it didn't work out. So
yeah, and then moving on to Monolith here. So there's a lot going on with this one. There's a lot of layers we could tackle it.
Hmm.
Travis, I know that you are sometimes a listener of Kind of Funny. Did you by chance see their
Yep.
discussion with Jason Schreier from
Oh
last
yeah, of
week?
course. Yeah, I listened to all that stuff because there's certain times where obviously this is not the exact same situation, but even like Concord last year, like I listened to a bunch of podcasts because that's always what excites me. Other than when we talk about stuff as fans, the next thing is just the business aspect, right? Of like, okay, how did all these dominoes fall? How do you again? Because it's just hard to rack my
That's the
brain when it's
GM
like.
mode in you. You want to see,
Absolutely. And it's just like, man, this game's been cooking for 4 years and it's just gone. It's fascinating from a fan point of view. It's fascinating from like, I feel so bad for the people that have been working on this and their resume. They just have like a blank spot now for years. It's just one of these things. And for me, this is fascinating because the Concord one was fascinating because PlayStation, like, big thing. This is a studio that gave us Arkham Asylum. This is or like not exactly, but I mean Warner Brothers in general. Like that company was at the forefront of superhero game evolution and where they are now. So yeah, but I did listen to the Schreier thing. So
hmm Yeah, I mean, I don't want to just repeat point for point what he
yeah.
says there because he's going to be able to explain that stuff a lot better. He knows the names of all these people that are involved.
Yeah.
I can kind of remember some of them, but like, I don't know. I don't know all those details. So definitely go check that out. Not that they need us small little
Yeah.
podcast compared to them to shout out their thing, but it was a really great
It's a
episode. It was
good
really,
interview. It's
it was
informative.
really
Yeah.
enlightening. And yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like when Jason Schreier starts talking about your game or your studio, you're in
Yeah.
trouble.
It's not good
Um,
news. Yeah.
and so yeah, it was really interesting to hear kind of the inner workings of what happened at Monolith. But I think for me, like one of the big takeaways is that just like wow, over the years since the release of those Lord of the Rings games, just like all the top level talent, the leaders of the studio, all those people that kind of you'd say are maybe the most responsible for like those games being what they are, have just been like leaving
Hmm.
one after another, leaving, forming their own studios, grabbing other people from Monolith on their way out. And so it's one of those things with I feel like when we talk about movies, we can easily be like, oh yeah, this is the writer, this is the director. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's a million other people that are involved in the movie, but we can be like, okay, I can see the people that are involved in the creative thing of this. But with games, it becomes a lot more tricky sometimes when we're talking about certain studios. We're talking about like, oh, even what we just had, like Playground. Oh, they made Forza Horizon and now they're making this. But it's like a lot of the leadership that made those Forza games actually left like recently in
Yeah.
between this Fable thing. So it's like even that studio is not quite the same as we're already comparing to this thing that doesn't quite exist
Hmm.
anymore. And that's just the nature of how huge these development teams are. People are leaving constantly, new people are joining, people are coming back, people are leaving again, all this crazy stuff. But it gets to a point where it's like, okay, well, I don't know. Is the monolith that existed last week? Is that
Yeah.
even the same thing, right? Other than the name, like what else makes it that same studio that made it that thing? It's really just comes down to the people that make these games, and it just seems like overwhelmingly a lot of those really people in the big important positions, the most important positions, weren't really there anyway. So it's like
Hmm.
I don't even know who are the people that are making this Wonder Woman game. It's just like a new team, kind of to some extent, right?
Well, and it's to not to take us off track, but it's like the similar extent to Rocksteady, where it's like, okay, the rumor is they're making a sole single plat Batman game, right? Like what I
Mm-hmm.
predicted for years that okay, Squad's
Another
gonna
Jason
bomb.
Schreier reveal, so
Yeah,
that's probably legit.
yeah, but it's the same thing of like those guys that shepherd that franchise are they're not there anymore. You know, like they left Rocksteady. Like
Mm-hmm.
even by the
Yeah.
time the person Paul Dano, who was from the animated series, who wrote the first two games that were more critically acclaimed, he had already left for the third. So it's like same thing for this. Like you're not gonna have this guy who's been writing Batman for 20 years. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll find somebody. But I mean, like same thing when you think like okay, Rocksteady Batman, that has to be something different, and you just have to kind of go off the laurels of the past. But yeah, I think it's just like anytime a situation where a studio closes that you have some if you love a game and that studio closes, I think that sucks a lot more. That hurts a bit more because it sticks with you
Mm-hmm.
because it just thinks like, man, you're never gonna see Monolith again. Like, and even then, I didn't love the game. I have mini memories of, it. But even like Condemned, those games they did back in the day because those were
Right.
like horror games. I remember seeing the covers, man, this looks like Saw, and that's how I got into them. But like Lord of the Rings, those are I know we'll talk about the system after, but the world. I love Lord of the Rings, and I think they did great stuff. Some of the story stuff was all right, but it felt like they captured the spirit of what Lord of the Rings was. And I'll never forget where I was when that Nemesis system hit, and it was like such a man. That's one of those gaming moments where you'll remember forever. Because I think when I played it, I might have heard about it leading up to, because I was still online looking at the GameSpots and IGN, but you don't know until you really feel it. And how many games have we played where it's like, we got this new system or feature and it does this, and then when you play, it's like, well, not really. Like it kind of does that. That would be the perfect version of it, right? But that was great. So it's just kind of a bummer. And we had talked about last time, right, of all the games they pitched, and then we learned this in this report, though, they even before they pitched like the Flash and Constantine game, that they wanted to do their own IP, and WB was like, nah, like you're not going to do that. So it's really unfortunate how it went down. Again, just mishandling of, even then, whatever you think about those games, I think were, other than I totally forgot in the podcast era that second Mordor game had those loot boxes controversy. I completely forgot, because by the time I got it, they got rid of that all. But once I got rid of that, like pretty well received games, and this to go to nothing. And even with Wonder Woman, I thought that was a perfect fit. I really liked that idea that Schreier leaked of the reverse nemesis system that was working for that game, of instead of killing people and them coming back, you're going to be befriending them, and that would be like building, because it already was like that way in Lord of the Rings, where you'd kill a guy and you could make him your captain or lieutenant, you could build an army. But with Wonder Woman, that might not make sense by, okay, I'm going to take a bunch of DC villains and make them my captains and whatnot, but finding a way to make it like the reverse of that, and the people remember you for doing good deeds, like that's something cool. How many superhero games do we do the side missions and whatnot? I think there'd be something really cool if you see a burning building, there's someone you got to go save, and maybe you don't go save them, they just die or whatever, right? But if you go save them, other than just like, I appreciate you saving my life, and they give you like some XP tokens, like imagine that like 2 hours later, it's like, oh, you bump into Sally Mae and she has this and she wants to fight. Like I was like, oh, that was again really cool, but unfortunately that didn't happen, and then it sounded like they were just gonna make it a God of War game, which makes sense, but like, you have this great system, it's only unique to you should use it. So just it wasn't surprising, because it's funny, 2 weeks ago when the last time I was on Sidequest, we talked about the issues they were having, so it wasn't a big surprise that, okay, it got closed, but still, it's still disappointing, because I feel like when we talked about that Wonder Woman reveal, we were all at least somewhat intrigued, because it's like, oh, that seems like a good fit, Monolith and Wonder Woman. Let's see what can happen. And now a lot of that team apparently is working on that Black Panther game at EA or whatnot. But like,
okay, Travis, you got to slow down. Okay, well, you got to give me a chance to jump in.
I'll stop.
so many things you've covered now. We got to get through this one at a time. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll jump back to the Nemesis system thing. We can finish talking about that a little bit. Because I think I'm kind of the opposite. I think it was a really weird choice to not continue with what they had built there in terms of the villain side of it. Just because to me that was always the great, why that game had such, like, the pitch alone was great, because it was a Wonder Woman game with the Nemesis system. That's all you need, just because DC and Marvel and all these things just have such a depth of villains and characters, and that's where you could like have the big ones, and maybe you'd every once in a while bump into Lex Luthor, probably not, but like, you have your smaller like freak like villains too, and I just think that would be such a great system to combine with that stuff. And obviously with all these comic book stuff, these villains never die, they always get locked up, they go away, they could be, or in the Mordor games you'd get like mutilated and then come back later with like a new prosthetic leg or something like that. And I think that system just made so much sense. But I also do think from the other side of it, it's like, it's cool potentially that Monolith, rather than just like, okay, we're just gonna make the same game over and over again with a different skin, they are like looking at like, okay, how can we take this really cool, unique system that we made, and then for some reason patented it, because that's annoying as hell. But like, how can we turn that on its head and like adjust it a bit, but put it in a new way? And I think the idea of having that with allies to some extent is a cool idea, but I think it would work a lot better if it was like a combined system where you still have that nemesis system with the villains, but then maybe there's some way where you can like, your teammates will come and go. And I think that would be really cool, because there's a lot of games where like companions or team members like could die permanently, and then there's a lot of games where like Avowed, for example, no matter what you do, your companions are never going to die, as far as I can tell from my few hours in the game. I think very few games deal with the idea of like someone joining your party and then leaving your party and then joining your party again, just based on like choices you make. It's like, if you make a bad decision, they leave your party, usually that's permanent and you can never undo that kind of thing. So I think the idea of like a more active ally system, I don't know how it would have worked in the game. Maybe you have like a team of 2 buddies that are with you at all time and you're kind of picking and choosing. I think it could have been really cool. But yeah, I think the idea of like moving away from the nemesis systems for the enemies seems like a real whiff. But I think maybe that could be because of what you were saying there, of it like turning into maybe more of a linear experience with smaller maps compared to what those Mordor games were. And maybe that system just doesn't make as much sense. But then I also think like that sounds like a not very compelling game, like a linear game where the core mechanic is that your allies are like leaving and joining based on your choices and stuff. Like, okay, that seems
I
kind of by the numbers.
I wonder though. I would have liked to see, because that's one of the things I liked about Shadow of War was the building your army, and when you would go invade other camps and stuff, and it would be still spin on that. But I think I wonder if that would have worked, like I said, better with good people, and they would have made a spin on that where you are actively building armies of people, and if they die, like what does that do for your roster? Does everyone go? Is there a lieutenant there? So, but I do get the your points there. So, but like I said, on the reverse, I agree with you where it's just cool that they didn't want to just do the same thing over, reskinned. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, another thing was too that like I guess the game kind of completely restart development at some
Yeah.
point. Obviously, this happens when like leaders change around, and it's like one of those things I talked about how like okay, maybe that monolith is gone, but it's like that doesn't mean that the new people who take over in those positions can't be better or just as good, right? Like those new people that fill those positions, maybe they were from the studio before, maybe they brought in other people. I think it could be cool to see like how those collaborations work. But it sounds like even when the game was announced, when we got that teaser, that it was just fiction at that point. Like there wasn't
Yes.
even a game at all. Like they just announced that they're working on it essentially. But yeah, it was as real as Elder Scrolls 6 was when that teaser was shown off too, right? It was just like pretty much an announcement of what they're working on, but that was already
Yes.
years after the last Mordor game. So just like years of things churning, people leaving, I don't know, things getting greenlit, not getting greenlit, and just kind of messing around, which, yeah, when you have a really a big team in an expensive area, like that's just bleeding money at that point. So obviously this is just kind of a rough thing all around. And I'm sure the team members are not too thrilled, as you mentioned, to just have like this kind of big empty bucket on their resume of just like what have they been doing. Well, not really their fault, but just like unfortunately nothing for like this almost 10-year
Yeah.
time span for some of these people. It's really just really sad overall. But yeah, I think we can go to that Black Panther thing you're talking about too, because I didn't realize this when we talked about that Black Panther game announcement. We said like, oh, it's EA making this thing. But yeah, I think that is some interesting context that I didn't really realize, is that studio is kind of created by a lot of the people from Monolith who left Monolith. Starts out with a couple big wigs at the top, the big leadership people, and they bring over other, I don't know, people in smaller or more specific roles, right? And so I don't know, what do you think about that? Like, do you think that the Black Panther game will utilize the Nemesis system in a way that is not like infringing on the patent, but will still take some of those ideas and roll with them?
Yeah, I would love for them to achieve something like that where they can't be sued or get in trouble. I'm going to say no, just because I think with games right now, they don't want to risk. They just want to be successful, and they don't want somewhere, oh, you get a successful Black Panther game, and then, oh, boom, big lawsuit hit on there, and then there's this
Yeah.
issue and that issue. I think they're going to play it safe. I think, luckily, with like the map size of the Mordor games, like I feel like I can already see that. We're like, okay, I can see the reverse of the very dour, like lots of grays and greens for Lord of the Rings, where it's like the very bright version of that with Wakanda. So I think the layout and the missions and kind of how they use side quests and stuff, I think they'll do that well. So I can see the line there, but yeah, I don't think they'll do anything to that level. And I hope that it does to still come out, because we have that. We got Iron Man. We got obviously, I think that whatever Captain America Black Panther game, I think that's a go and gonna happen, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I think it's
yeah.
more single player, like linear sort of
Yeah,
situation.
so-
Probably not going to be anything too crazy
yeah.
structurally.
I hope the Panther one happens. So at least it's good to know that, hey, people that have made some great stuff are working on it. So that's never a bad thing. That doesn't guarantee a great game, but that at least is
Yeah,
somewhat exciting. So
it's not like the people got snapped or anything. These
Yes,
these
yeah.
these workers still exist. They just moved elsewhere. Yeah, and then I guess with that too, like the patent side of things with the Nemesis system. Well, I forget. It's like until 2035 or 36 or something like that.
36.
Yeah, is when that's locked away till. But I know that like there has been other examples of studios doing things similar to it, and all these patents, they're always super duper specific, or at least they usually are like super
Yeah.
duper specific. And so there's ways you can skirt around it, or they're super vague, and then you can like get away with doing a similar system because it's so vague that you can kind of slip through the cracks a little bit too. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I think just a lot of people probably just don't even want to mess with it though, right? They just don't want to take that risk. And that would, I guess, maybe depend on like, I don't know, if you're a studio that's owned by Xbox or something, like maybe Xbox will just not allow it or green light something like that. If you're a smaller team, maybe you're taking a bigger risk because you don't have like the big Xbox lawyers, but now you don't have like the overhead who say you can't try these things out. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with it. But I don't know. Do you think like other studios at WB are gonna take advantage of this, or is this patent just gonna sit idly used until it's up, and then maybe we get an influx of games that try it out if it doesn't get renewed?
Yeah, because like to me, what the only thing would be, I feel like the only thing really going to be on their plate for a while is Batman, and I guess you could like do that, but like
Hogwarts. Do you think Hogwarts would do it?
Hogwarts, forgot about Hogwarts.
Batman's an interesting pull, though. Again, I guess that would be because those games have. Well, I guess they did get kind of open worldy, right? So maybe there
Yeah, they
could be
did.
some.
Oh yeah,
system
they
that would work
definitely
there.
did. Only thing is you're not hopefully killing people as Batman, so that's a little bit. But I guess you can just arrest them, and be like, I got
But that's
out
the
of
idea, right? So
Arkham.
you're killing these orcs, but then it's like, oh, I'm back. I didn't actually die, right?
Yeah, I guess so. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think either one. I think Hogwarts is gonna not want to take massive swings with that type of stuff. I think they're gonna want to keep the gameplay pretty similar, add locations, if anything, add to it more Harry Potter stuff that is like we talk about Quidditch or other stuff, because I do feel like Harry Potter has a more mainstream fan base for the buyers of that game. So I don't think they
Now I'm
want
picturing just a Nemesis system with only Quidditch, like if they did Quidditch Champions, but with
Yeah.
where you
beat
like
me
hit someone
before.
with a quaffle or whatever, and then they like break their leg, but then they come back
Yeah.
next season. They're like, "Oh, I've got a vengeance. I'm gonna take you down, Ron
Mhm.
Weasley."
And then even with Batman, it's like I guess you could do the Nemesis system, that could work. I don't think you can do that portion for Shadow of War where it's like you recruit and make an army, because I don't see Batman working with a bunch of thugs to like take down the Joker. Like that doesn't make much sense. So I guess you
Yep.
could see the reverse if they would have done the save people thing, but it sounded like Monolith or the people Warner Bros. Whoever made the decision didn't want to go forward with that, right? So I feel like that's kind of like a dead version. So no, I think it's something we're not going to see, and I guess my hope is that they just forget to patent it in 2036 again. I don't doubt they will. I'm sure they'll have somebody
Yeah, I mean,
sitting ready to go, but
if they haven't done anything with it, I feel like that would probably worsen their case to be able to renew it, right? I don't know how
I hope,
this is
yeah.
me assuming as like a regular citizen doesn't know anything,
Yeah.
but I feel like if you're not using it, then I don't know why a court would. But also, a lot of these courts don't know shit about video
No.
games, so they just
Yeah.
approve random patent. Like Nintendo has all sorts of random patents like this too for
Or,
very
yeah.
innocuous things, right? And it
Or
just
they
kind
can
of
even
happens.
BS and lie and make like another game announce of like, oh, we're doing Superman, and
Yeah.
then when they go to the court, say, yeah, we're making it's gonna have the Nemesis
good point.
system. We're excited. It's in process right now. Same thing as Wonder Woman. It's like it was being used, but until it got closed, we didn't know about the switch of the Nemesis system, and we also didn't know it got dropped. So this whole time, most of us were hyped because it's like, oh man, Wonder Woman using the Nemesis system. That sounds great. But really, when we got the game, let's say we did get the game, it would have not had any of that. So that would have felt very odd when they announced like those press releases, and that was a selling point to me, because like sure, I definitely can see the pitch of just Wonder Woman via God of War, right? That works, like sure, but like the Nemesis system, I think gave it like a little extra juice to be like, okay, this is something that will get me in the door that maybe other video games won't have, or even God of War, because you could just look at Wonder Woman, and if it's lackluster, you go, I'll just play God of War again, or I'll buy, a different one that's on sale. But yeah, it sounds like we wouldn't have even got that if the game did come out. So
Yeah. Yeah, and then the last point for me is like when I first heard this news, my immediate thought was like, did no one want to buy Monolith and like own them for themselves, like an Xbox or a Sony? Like, is that not a way out of this? And so, yeah, really great context from Schreier in that interview once again, kind of breaking it down of like, one, just like, okay, this is a big studio. There's a lot of people, and it's in a very expensive city. So just like for anyone to buy it, like that is a huge expense to take on. On top of that, it's like, if you are to continue, if they're to continue doing things they were, like making a DC game or using the Nemesis system, all those things would have like licensing fees on top of them if they're not owned by WB anymore. But then also, it's like, yeah, you'd be buying a Monolith that doesn't include a lot of those key figureheads, once again, that I was mentioning, that like made the studio what it was for some amount of time.
Yeah.
So like with that all that context, it's like, oh yeah, I guess it is a lot less of a desirable buy. It's really expensive. It's a big risk, and then like, what do you get out of it? Like it just kind of remains to be seen. It's kind of like it's like almost like a new studio at that point. So
Yeah.
I can see why that wasn't. There's always a chance it happens. Like when Xbox closed, people who made Hi-Fi Rush Tango, and then like they got bought by Crafton or Cafton or whatever that company's called. Like I don't know. I think it was like a month later or something like that. So it could happen. Monolith could come back, I guess. But once again, so much has changed that who knows what would happen if they had even happened. And then once again, it's not like they would just still have the Wonder Woman IP sitting in their studio. Like all WB owns all that stuff. So some good context there, because that was my first thought, is like, no one wanted this, really?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's probably why I imagine they wanted to make their own original IP, because then that would have been something to fall back on, right? Like, let's say
Yeah.
even if the Nemesis system was in that, right? If they go to Warner Bros. Like, oh, we're doing this game, you'll be a part of it. You could build some sort of hopefully, right, if it's a hit, some sort of franchise, some sort of name, so even if you get bought, it's like, okay, we don't have Wonder Woman, we don't have Lord of the Rings, but we do have this, and we could make something similar to this and do this, and
Mm-hmm.
but now it is just not. That is a problem with Warner Brother games in general, because they talk about, in the kind of funny thing, I remember a couple of years ago we talked about this, of like them trying to sell, but like it's a weird situation because like they're trying to sell, but it's in like some weird like still licensing agreement, because they're not selling like, okay, they're not sitting me and Dylan down saying we want to sell Warner Brothers games, and when we do that, you get Batman, you get the Ninja Turtles, you get Mortal Kombat, you get all this stuff, right? It's like, no, it's some weird selling where same thing where you're getting a bunch of studios and workers, which could be talented, but you're not getting Batman, you're not getting Gotham Knights or Harry Potter. That would be the selling point of almost like a Marvel, right? Of, hey, Marvel for Spider-Man owns everything except for those film rights. Sony has that, right? So imagine if Warner Brothers said, hey, we're making a huge deal where we're going to keep the comics, we're going to keep the TV shows, we're going to keep the movies, but with anything DC video games now, which I would not want this, but like now Xbox owns it, now PlayStation owns it, right? So that I could see that people being interested of, oh man, they're selling all the Warner Brother IP for us to get, but they're not. It's like this weird type of deal where it's just studios, people, and there's no original IP. So even if you had one original IP, you could justify if it's a big title, but it's a weird situation. I don't know, because obviously Batman games do sell pretty well. Like the last Arkham Knight, I think it was like somewhere in the 20-25 million, like pretty good haul, and
It's
like
really good.
nowadays like they're gonna be looking for that. I do assume it will sell well, but at the same time, like we almost said with Fable, I think it has to still be a great game, because I think if you'll get your mainstream people, but if word travels, it is a massive step down from the Arkham series. I think that will kind of sink it. And we've seen many games. Obviously, Batman's a big title, but still, we've seen many superhero games not do well lately. So I don't think it's a guarantee. And then if that doesn't happen, then I think Warner Bros. Games in general is just kind of done. Maybe they'll do the Marvel route, where they'll just start licensing their games out, like,
Yeah.
oh, you make a game, you pitch us. That's what I could see the future, because I don't think a Batman game being a hit is a guarantee. I think it's likely, but it's not promised.
Where do you think this success level of Hogwarts Legacy sequel will be?
That's kind of tough, because I think we've talked about this before, where what do you do with Hogwarts? And like I said, I made a pitch where it's like, okay, maybe you find like a secret cave that's like oh, here's a secret part of the school that was shut down and everything. But it's like, again, you're adding on to that's not the nostalgia. I do agree with many kind of critics, because they talked about it Kind of Funny, and I listened to Sacred Symbols and other places too, where it's just like that Hogwarts might have been like, I won't say a one-off. I'm not saying the sequel would not be successful, but that I think scratched the itch for a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people like Emily who we bought the game, she played it, she's still never beaten it, and I also don't think she would feel like, oh, I need to buy the sequel. She would just finish this one, or even if she was done, I think she would just go, like I can just play that. Like I think everyone, that's the one thing where I think from certain aspects of the game, it was so great, like the customization of your wizard, picking your house, seeing like everything people have been wanting a Harry Potter game to be in a mainstream way, it was. So like other than Quidditch, what more can you really do? It's different with Spider-Man. Spider-Man, we talked about New York. What do you do with New York? Okay, you make it a little bit bigger, but still you can add
You
this
make it
villain.
snowy in Miles
Yes,
Morales.
exactly. So maybe make it more snowy in Hogwarts. Like, but I do agree that I don't think it's gonna, I won't say bomb, but it's not going to be the mover it was that go around. Because I also don't think people were like, oh, I loved this game, and guess what? The story was something special. It's like, no, the story I think was serviceable for the world, right? So,
Yeah.
like even everything, like you could do like Avada Kedavra. Like they didn't even hold anything back of like, hey, this time you could be a dark wizard and do this. Like I guess maybe that's the only route you could go, is try to make it more
Yeah.
RPG, but at the same time, does that sell the people that buy 2 games a year that bought Call of Duty and Harry Potter? If I say, hey, this time you got more RPG options, it's like, oh, cool. Like, I don't think so. I don't for that crowd. I think they just want like, hey, is Quidditch in there? Hey, is Hagrid in there?
Yeah, which the Quidditch thing is funny because like obviously that game Quidditch Champions did not do well, but obviously people would more prefer to play it just via Hogwarts Legacy that has everything else with it
Hmm.
too, the all-in-one sort of experience. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. I'm kind of in. I guess my only maybe counter argument would be like, what is the release date of that in relation to the TV show? How good is the TV show? Are people
Yes,
loving and hyped on the TV show? Is that bringing in new younger fans of Harry Potter who
very
then
well
want to
could be.
play
Yeah.
like the new hotter game that probably runs really well on the Switch too? Well, probably won't, but maybe it'll run better than Hogwarts Legacy One does on the Switch One. And I don't know, maybe that's how it could find it's matching its success. But I think with let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say it doesn't line up that way. I mean, when is, that show is already it's good casting right now, I guess. So I'm
It's
guessing it'll
casting.
be
Yeah.
out. It should be out around the same time as the game. So
I think right now the current date is 2027. I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I probably along with that show they'll probably put some of the movies back in theaters. So maybe you like get
Oh
a
yeah.
resurgence of Harry Potter fandom.
Yes.
We'll see. So yeah, but I'm kind of agree with you. I think as a default state, I would say it's I don't know, maybe going to be like 80% as successful as that first one, but then these other factors could really boost it up again.
Hmm.
Or I don't know what the other selling factors really are, because as you mentioned, like to go to an extra cave in Hogwarts, like, yeah, you're right. Like, what else can they really do other than just like straight up putting it in the same, like, yeah, bringing your Hagrids and your other like beloved characters, which they
Yeah.
very well could do. Like, they were even just sprinkling a bit more of them in there. So,
Hmm.
yeah, we'll have to see what happens there, but. Any other thoughts on all of this WB Games stuff right now?
No, like I said, it's just overall pretty crappy because I think it's like I know there's some bias with myself, but if you were to make a list of the 25 most influential games, I do think Arkham Asylum would be on there because not only for the superhero genre, like we talked about with Mad Max, and you look at Lord of the Rings, there's many games that inspired, right? And I think that kind of started this wave of success. Take out Mortal Kombat, but this wave of wins with that, and then obviously you had Shadow of Mordor, and then Mortal Kombat was still doing its thing. The Injustice games did pretty well, and it just kind of weird where for a while it felt like Warner Brothers was really building towards maybe something I won't say special, but something of note that like when this podcast started, Arkham Knight was coming out and Shadow of War, and also yeah, they had that loot box controversy. But I would have not thought like, oh, we're like this is the start of the end. I would have thought, okay, there's some road bumps, but like there's still going to be a bigger studio as it goes along. I felt like we had everything figured out, and even a Hogwarts, right? Like that's a massive win for them. The difference is now Hogwarts doesn't feel like Hogwarts almost felt like it could have been like, oh, Batman handing off the baton to Harry Potter, like, you're the next one. But it really just feels like a diamond in the rough where you had Suicide Squad, you have the Monolith News, you have Gotham Knights, like all these kind of disappointments or letdowns, and Hogwarts is the thing that stands out. So I think in an alternate universe, there is Warner Brothers Montreal still killing it. Monolith's still killing it. Rocksteady's put out a game that's not like a. Again, we talked about the whole like Gorilla and play games. It's like or Playground. It's like the same thing of that. It's just where I get it. We've talked about this. I've said this before. I'm excited for like who makes the live service documentary or something like that YouTube series because like how do you go from that influential to me superhero franchise to okay, we got to make the live for service, and even then Suicide Squad, I've had a problem with many times. Why was that not Justice League? I get it because they couldn't have guns, but just like the Suicide Squad, like that's
Mm-hmm.
not like I know it's had two movies, but people still have not really like it. That didn't hit the mainstream like Guardians of the Galaxy did, right? Even if you had Joker and Harley Quinn, didn't matter. That's not a franchise that people refer back to. So again, many of these problems are from the suits and the higher up, and we got to do this, and they're looking at scoreboards and check sheets and all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But that's what is more of a bummer because again, it's stuff that like we talked about on the when we did Weekly Geek last week, where we talked about how Daredevil's around, it got canceled, and now Marvel's kind of like we're going back to that. Where are we with Rocksteady? We did Batman, massive success. We could do different studios, all this stuff. Everything starts to go away, and what are we doing? We're gonna do Batman again, and it's just like, and again, I love Batman, but I have,
Yeah.
two 10 out of 10 Batman games for me, and then two other ones that I really enjoy.
And it
Even
won't
Gotham
release
Knights is good.
until at least 2030.
Exactly, right? And it's like, what's the landscape then? Does it like
Yeah.
I'm sure it will get released, but I think that's the thing as it's funny, it just coming on a lot of like landmarks of the 10-year, and that's where looking back to when the podcast started now, it's just like a sad thing. And there's many sad things in gaming right now, but this one in
Mm-hmm.
particular because I really liked a lot of the franchises they were working with right now, right? So I would like to say like I hope they can turn it around. You still got Harry Potter, you got Batman, but do they just stick to that now? Like, this is where our bread and butter is, and let's not do anything else. Let's never do a Superman game, or let's do it when it's too late. That's the thing where I don't know. It's a disappointing situation, but we carry on and see what happens.
Yeah, there was a statement, and I forget, it was in an article I read on Polygon. I forget if it was like an investor call thing or where it was, but they talked about how they're just really going to double down on like all we're doing is like Hogwarts stuff, DC stuff, Mortal Kombat, and Game of Thrones. Those are like the only 4 things they're doing. And obviously the bucket of DC, that's a big bucket. That means it could be a Superman game, but it probably won't. It probably just means Batman. But yeah, like it sounds like they're really don't expect anything revolutionary in terms of like new IP or anything very daring. I think we'll get like a very safe WE for a long time until like they start working on that revenue again and it's more consistent, I guess.
And I'm with people that when they say DC, they just mean Batman because they just closed down a studio making a DC game. And, if you were to look at the
And then another one just bombed supremely last year.
And if you look at the Pantheon of Heroes, I'm not saying Wonder Woman's as big as Batman and Superman, but for the people they got, like, she's top 5, I'd say, for who you could make a game for, right? Like, even then myself, who loves Joker, when they're like, what Monolith was like, you could make a Flash game or a Joker game. It's like, unless you're making something really cool, low key, like a Telltale game, like something like that would fit Joker to me. Something like that. But like, you're telling me you're going to make a game the size of Shadow War based on the Joker? It's like, Joker is Tyler Batman's favorite character. That sounds like a terrible, terrible decision. So that's why, like, Wonder Woman, that sounds like a great idea to at least try. But now they've got rid of that. So again, they list, we're focusing on DC. But we just killed a DC game that's been on the work for 4 years. It's like, all right, so we'll see.
Hopefully next week on Sidequest we have some good news, fun news to share. Because this stuff always sucks to just hear that hundreds of more game developers are without work in a landscape that is, doesn't have a ton of jobs for them to go get in the absence of this one that they already had. So remains to be seen. Hopefully WB Games can turn things around. And not for the execs, but just for the teams, just for the people, the hardworking game developers out there. Our hearts are with you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Travis, for joining me. Very good, heated discussion that we had here today, and we will be back again next time. Bye-bye.